in the vast expanse of the Milky Way, where thousands of species had been trading, warring, and gossiping for millennia, humans were the new kids on the block. Most galactic citizens viewed Earth's inhabitants as barely evolved primates who had stumbled onto faster-than-light travel through sheer dumb luck rather than any real intelligence. Intelligence. The Galactic Alliance, the universe's premier interstellar bureaucracy, had reluctantly admitted humans to their ranks a mere 30 years ago. This explained why Captain Vrex Law of the prestigious cruiser Celestial Majesty was currently experiencing what humans might call an aneurysm. Completely inoperable? Are you absolutely certain? Captain Vrexlaw's 7-foot frame trembled with indignation, his purple skin flushing a dangerous magenta. The forearms characteristic of Centurions gesticulated wildly at his chief engineer. Chief Engineer Glavik bowed his eye stalks in deference. The quantum flux capacitor has suffered cascading failures across all 7 dimensions, Captain. The probability matrix is irreversibly corrupted. Even with Alliance technology, we cannot repair it without returning to a major shipyard. The Celestial Majesty Pride of the Alliance fleet had suffered catastrophic engine failure while passing the remote Omega-12 outpost. What should have been a routine diplomatic mission was now an embarrassing breakdown in the galactic backwater. We simply cannot be stranded here for 3 months awaiting a tow vessel, Vrexlaw hissed. The ambassadorial summit begins in 14 days. Outpost Commander Plix, a diminutive gelatinous from the Andromeda Galaxy, bubbled nervously. There is one alternative, Captain. Speak, Commander. This outpost recently began hosting a human repair crew. They specialize in unusual solutions. The silence that followed was profound. Vrexlaw's antennae went rigid with horror. Humans? You suggest we allow primitive primates to touch the Celestial Majesty? The most advanced vessel in the Alliance fleet. His voice had reached a pitch that threatened to shatter the outpost's windows. Commander Plix wobbled apologetically. They've shown remarkable results with several distressed vessels. Their methods are unorthodox, but... Unorthodox? Humans solve problems by hitting things with metal tools. They still use combustion in some of their vehicles. Chief Engineer Glavik cleared his throat sacs. Captain, with respect, the diplomatic repercussions of missing the summit would be considerable. Captain Vrexlaw's eye ridges furrowed deeply as he contemplated this impossible choice, his reputation or his prejudice. After several painful seconds, he slumped in defeat. I contact these humans, but I want their every movement monitored, and make it abundantly clear that if they damage my ship further, there will be severe diplomatic consequences. Commander Plix bounced slightly with relief. I'll send the communication immediately, Captain. They call their vessel the Duct-Tape Dream. Vrexlaw closed his 4 eyes in resignation. The name alone told him everything he needed to know about the nightmare that awaited him. The Duct-Tape Dream lived up to its name in every conceivable way. The vessel that docked with Omega-12 3 days later looked like it had been assembled from the scrap yards of 12 different planets which, as it turned out, had been. Captain Vrexlaw stood rigidly at the airlock, flanked by his officers, all wearing expressions that suggested they were awaiting execution rather than salvation. The airlock hissed open, revealing 3 humans who could not have looked less like the elite rescue team the situation demanded. Howdy, folks. A tall, weathered woman with grey-streaked hair strode forward, extending a hand that Captain Vrexlaw reluctantly accepted with his upper right appendage. Mackenzie Reynolds. Everyone calls me Mac. I heard you've got yourself a busted quantum flux doohickey. Vrexlaw's translator struggled with the word doohickey, eventually rendering it as complex technical component of undetermined specificity. This is my crew, Mac continued, gesturing to the 2 humans behind her. Zoe Blackwell, best tech specialist this side of the Horsehead Nebula. A dark-skinned woman with a shock of bright blue hair and arms covered in bizarre markings tattoos. Vrexlaw recalled with distaste, nodded sharply. Nice ship you got here. Very shiny, very fragile looking. Her smile contained too many teeth for Vrexlaw's comfort. And this is Theo Nakamura, newest member of our merry band of miracle workers. The young man bowed slightly, his enthusiasm radiating from him like solar flares. It's an honor to work on such an advanced vessel, Captain. The Celestial Majesty is legendary. At least one of them showed proper respect, Vrexlaw thought. I must emphasize, the captain began, that the Celestial Majesty contains technology far beyond human understanding. My engineers have determined that repair is impossible without. Yeah, we read the specs you sent, Mac interrupted, already walking past the reception committee toward the engine room. Quantum flux capacitor with dimensional integrity issues. Teach Halsum, Marwood. Not my first rodeo with those puppies. Zoe followed, pausing only to wink at the chief engineer. Don't worry your eye stalks, big guy. We'll have this bird purring in no time. The Alliance officers hurried after them, with Chief Engineer Glavik sputtering protests. But you haven't been briefed on the 73 safety protocols for accessing the quantum chamber. Safety protocols? Mac chuckled. Where we're going, we don't need safety protocols. That was a movie reference, Theo explained helpfully to the bewildered aliens. It's a human thing. When they reached the engine room, the humans surveyed the complex machinery with expressions that ranged from mild interest, Mac, to childlike wonder, Theo, to barely suppressed glee, Zoe. Sweet mother of Einstein, Zoe whispered, approaching the central column, where swirling multidimensional energies should have been flowing. Instead, the chamber was dark, with occasional pathetic sparks. It's the XJ9000 model. I've always wanted to get my hands inside one of these. Please refrain from putting any hands inside Alliance technology, Vrexlaw snapped. Max circled the massive engine, occasionally tapping components with a primitive metal tool or wrench, Vrexlaw recalled with horror. She then knelt and pressed her ear against the casing. What are you doing? Chief Engineer Glavik asked, scandalized. Listening, Mac replied. After another moment, she stood and wiped her hands on her worn coveralls. Yep, dimensional flux is completely out of whack. There's variance in at least 3 spatial dimensions. No wonder your diagnostics said it was toast. Zoe had already pulled out a handheld device that looked cobbled together from spare parts. Quantum readings are all over the place, matrix corruption at 89%. Most folks would call this a lost cause. Can you repair it or not? Vrexlaw demanded. Mac, Zoe, and Theo exchanged glances, then broke into identical grins that sent chills down Vrexlaw's spine. Captain, Mac declared, slapping her wrench against her palm. We can fix this piece of junk with a wrench, some wire, and maybe a paperclip. Give us 3 days. Impossible. Glavik protested. The manufacturer's specifications clearly state 4 days if you keep talking, Mac cut in. Now who's going to show us where you keep your spare parts? And please tell me you've got coffee on this fancy boat. That is not how you calibrate a quantum resonator. Chief Engineer Glavik's eye stalks were practically tied in knots as he watched Zoe methodically disassembling a component that, according to the manual, should never be opened outside a sterile manufacturing facility. Maybe not according to your fancy manual, Zoe replied, not looking up from her work. But your manual also says this ship is currently unfixable, so maybe it's not the Bible you think it is. It was day 2 of what the Alliance crew had begun referring to as the human invasion. The engine room had been transformed from an orderly temple of technology into what appeared to be a chaotic workshop. Tools scattered out everywhere, parts labeled with hand-written sticky notes, and in one corner, Theo had rigged up what he called a coffee machine using spare hydraulic components. Captain, they're using primitive conductive metals to bypass the tertiary security protocols. Glavik reported as Vrexlaw entered for his hourly inspection. Is that true? Vrexlaw demanded, watching Mac splice wires together with alarming casualness. Yep, Mac confirmed. Your security protocols are what's preventing the system from resetting properly. Too many safeguards creating feedback loops. But those protocols exist for a reason. They prevent catastrophic dimensional collapse. They prevent catastrophic dimensional collapse when everything's working right, Mac corrected. Right now, they're like having the brakes locked while trying to start the car. Car? Vrexlaw's translator struggled again. Primitive human transportation device. Glavik supplied with disdain. Across the room, Theo was surrounded by a group of junior Alliance engineers who, despite orders to maintain professional distance, couldn't contain their curiosity. "So you're saying you just guess?" asked one young Arcturian, her feathers ruffled in disbelief. "Not guessing," Theo explained patiently. "We observe, hypothesize, test, and adapt. Human engineering isn't about having the perfect solution from the start. It's about trying something, seeing how it fails, then trying something better. That's wildly inefficient," another engineer commented. "But it works really well when you're dealing with the unknown," Theo countered, "and broken spaceships are always unknown territory." Meanwhile, Zoe had connected her jury-rigged diagnostic tool to the main console, bypassing 3 layers of security that should have been impenetrable. "How did you override the biometric locks?" Glavik demanded, hovering over her shoulder. "I didn't," Zoe replied with a mischievous grin. "I convinced them I was authorized." "That's impossible. The system requires specific genetic markers." "Yeah, and your system expects those markers to be presented in a very specific way. I just had to figure out what pattern it was looking for and replicate it." She wiggled her fingers. "Human hackers have been doing this since before we left our planet. Nothing personal. It's just what we do." By the end of the day, they had achieved what the Alliance engineers had deemed impossible. The auxiliary power systems were back online, humming with energy. The method involving a makeshift converter built from spare parts and what appeared to be components from the humans' own personal devices violated at least 37 Alliance engineering protocols. "It's not pretty," Mac announced to Captain Rex Law, "but it works. Tomorrow we tackle the dimensional stabilizers." A young Alliance engineer named Krill X approached hesitantly. "Commander Reynolds, would it be permissible for me to observe your methodology more closely tomorrow? For security purposes, of course." Mac grinned. "Sure thing, kid. Bring your tools and call me Mac." As they left the engine room, Drexlaw pulled his chief engineer aside. "Are they actually making progress or merely creating the illusion of competence?" Glavik reluctantly adjusted his eye stalks in the Centurion gesture of begrudging respect. "Their methods are chaotic, dangerous, and completely counter to all established procedures. But the auxiliary systems are functioning at 93% efficiency, better than factory specifications." Drexlaw's antennae drooped slightly. "How is that possible?" "I wish I knew, Captain. It defies all logic. They're fixing our ship with spare parts and primitive tools, and somehow it's working. On the 3rd day, catastrophe struck." "What in 7 hells did you do?" Captain Drexlaw bellowed as emergency sirens wailed throughout the ship. The engine room was filled with acrid smoke, and warning lights flashed from every console. "Minor setback," Mac called back, her face barely visible through the haze. "Dimensional cascades a bit more aggressive than we anticipated." "Minor setback. The power core is approaching critical failure." "You've doomed us all." Glavik was frantically working his console, his eye stalks swiveling in 4 different directions simultaneously. The ship shuddered violently. Alliance crew members were already rushing toward escape pods, following standard evacuation protocols. The dimensional disruption from the engine core was spreading, causing localized failures in gravity, lighting, and life support throughout the vessel. "All personnel, abandon ship." Drexlaw ordered through the ship-wide communication system. Zoe emerged from beneath a console, her face streaked with grease. "Ho there, Captain Dramatic. Nobody's abandoning anything. We've got this under control." "Under control?" Drexlaw gestured wildly at the chaos around them. "The dimensional barriers are collapsing. See, according to every safety protocol." "Yeah, that's the problem," Mac interrupted, studying a readout on her cobbled-together diagnostic device. "Your safety protocols are making things worse. When systems start failing, your ship tries to shut everything down in sequence rather than addressing the root cause." Theo rushed in, carrying a large metal case. "Got the stuff from our ship, Mac." "Perfect timing, kid." She turned to the Alliance officers. We need to manually stabilize the dimensional flux by creating a targeted resonance field directly within the core. Impossible. Glavik protested. The core chamber is sealed during emergencies, and even if it weren't, the radiation would be lethal. Mac glanced at Theo. Think you can fit through that maintenance shaft, kid? Theo's eyes widened, but he nodded resolutely. It'll be tight, but I can make it. The maintenance shafts lead nowhere near the core, Vrexlaw objected. They don't need to, Zoe explained, already rewiring a control panel. We just need to get close enough to deploy our resonator. It'll create a counter frequency to stabilize the dimensional fluctuations. What resonator? You have no equipment capable of. Mac popped open the case Theo had brought, revealing a device that looked like it had been built from spare parts in someone's garage, which, in fact, it had been. Homemade dimensional stabilizer, she explained with unmistakable pride. Built it after that nasty business with the Proxima Centauri wormhole last year. Another violent shudder ran through the ship, lights flickered ominously. A core breach in 6 minutes, the ship's computer announced pleasantly. No time to argue, Mac declared. Theo, get moving. Zoe, reroute emergency power to Deck 7. We need to maintain stability around the core junction. To everyone's surprise, young Krill X stepped forward. The ventilation system on Deck 7 intersects with auxiliary control nodes. I can help reroute power from there. Mac nodded approvingly. Good thinking, kid. This is against all protocols. Vrexlaw protested, but without much conviction now. His options were limited to trusting these bizarre humans or evacuating his beloved ship. Captain, Max said seriously, your protocols were written for ships that work properly. Right now we need to improvise. As Theo disappeared into the maintenance shaft with the makeshift resonator, Zoe and Krill X worked feverishly at the control panels. Mac coordinated their efforts, occasionally muttering calculations to herself that seemed to involve both advanced quantum mechanics and colorful Earth profanity. Core breach in 2 minutes. The computer reminded them cheerfully. Theo, status? Mac barked into her communicator. Almost there. His voice came back, strained, junctions narrower than I expected. Zoe? Mac turned. The power rerouting complete. Ready when the kid is. The ship gave another lurch, stronger than before. A supporting beam crashed down mere feet from where they stood. The core breach in 1 minute. I'm in position. Theo's triumphant voice crackled through the communicator. Deploying resonator now. Hit it, kid. Mac ordered. Through the ship's vibrations, they heard a high-pitched whine as the resonator activated. For one terrible moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then the emergency lights flickered once, twice, and steadied. Core stabilizing, the computer announced, sounding almost disappointed, the dimensional integrity being restored. The relief in the engine room was palpable. Vrexlaw's antennae sagged as tension drained from his body. How? Glavik whispered, staring at the readouts. The resonator is creating a perfectly calibrated counter-frequency. The dimensional matrix is repairing itself. Mac allowed herself a small smile. Sometimes the solution isn't in the manual, Chief. Sometimes you need to think beyond what's possible. The next morning, the Celestial Majesty's engine room was unrecognizable. Not because of damage, but because it was humming with perfect efficiency, consoles displaying green status indicators across all systems. The Alliance engineers moved about in a state of stunned disbelief, scanning and rescanning components, as if expecting them to collapse at any moment. I've reviewed the logs 15 times, Glavik reported to Captain Vrexlaw. The quantum flux capacitor is not only repaired but operating at 112% of factory specifications. It defies explanation. They watched as Mac, Zoe and Theo moved through the engine room, making final adjustments with their bewildering mix of advanced knowledge and primitive tools. Several Alliance engineers, led by the young Krill X, followed them closely, peppering them with questions. The fundamental problem, Theo was explaining to his rapt audience, was your approach to multidimensional stability. Your systems are designed to maintain perfect balance at all times, But sometimes you need controlled imbalance to reset the matrix. Like a spinning top, added one of the engineers hesitantly. Sometimes a wobble is necessary for overall stability. Exactly. Theo beamed. You get it. Across the room, Zoe was demonstrating her diagnostic tool to another group. Your standard equipment only measures what it expects to find. This baby looks for the unexpected, the weird little quantum hiccups that cause cascading failures. But it appears to be constructed from gaming equipment, an engineer observed. A purposed VR neural interface, Zoe confirmed. Turns out tech for immersive gaming is perfect for sensing dimensional anomalies. Who knew, right? Captain Vrexlor approached Mac, who was making final adjustments to the core housing. For several moments, he watched in silence. Commander Reynolds, he finally said, formal tones barely concealing his curiosity, your methods violated every established protocol in Alliance engineering standards. Yep, Mac agreed cheerfully, tightening a bolt. And yet, you succeeded where our finest engineers failed. That's because your finest engineers are trapped in thinking about how things are supposed to work, Mac replied, straightening up to face him. Humans specialize in dealing with how things actually work, especially when they're broken. Vrexlor's antennae twitched thoughtfully. A curious perspective. We have a saying on Earth, if it's stupid but works, it isn't stupid. A philosophical paradox. Nah, just practical thinking. Results matter more than process sometimes. The captain was silent for a moment longer. The Alliance has procedures for acknowledging assistance rendered. There will be formal commendations, of course. Mac waved a hand dismissively. Keep your commendations. Just spread the word that when your fancy ships break down, humans are good for more than just entertainment value. Nearby, young Krill X was helping Theo pack up their equipment. Is it true that humans learn engineering through a process called tinkering? He asked. Absolutely, Theo replied. Most of our best innovations came from people just messing around with stuff to see what happens. Fascinating. Our educational system discourages such experimentation. Maybe that's why you guys get stuck when something goes wrong outside the manual, Theo suggested gently. As the final diagnostics confirmed the ship's readiness for departure, Glavik approached Mac with what appeared to be physical pain on his features. I must acknowledge, he began stiffly, that your methods, while unorthodox, have proven effective. The dimensional stabilization technique you employed was innovative.
Coming from a Centurion engineer, this was practically effusive praise. Mac grinned. Thanks, Chief. Your ship's a beauty. She just needed someone to speak her language. And that language is apparently hitting things with wrenches, Glavik observed dryly.
Sometimes, Mac agreed. That's exactly what the universe needs. The observation deck of Omega-12 provided a perfect view as the Celestial Majesty prepared for departure. Its massive engines glowed with perfectly balanced quantum energies, plus a few distinctly human modifications that made the power signature unmistakable to anyone who knew what to look for. 3 days, Commander Plix bubbled admiringly to Mac. 8 days to accomplish what Alliance engineers deemed impossible. The story is already spreading through subspace communications. The human crew stood together, watching their handiwork prepare to return to the stars. Behind them, a small delegation from the Celestial Majesty approached, led by Captain Vrexlor. Commander Reynolds, he began formally. The Celestial Majesty expresses gratitude for services rendered. Your creative solutions have proven most effective. Just doing our job, Captain, Mac replied. Your ship will make it to that diplomatic summit with time to spare. Indeed. Vrexlor hesitated, then added, I have taken the liberty of updating the Alliance engineering database regarding human capabilities. Previous assessments were incomplete. That's diplomatic speak for we totally underestimated you, Zoe whispered to Theo, who suppressed a laugh. We've received 17 new repair requests since word of your success spread, Commander Plix informed them. It seems the Galactic Alliance has many impossible problems that suddenly appear solvable. Told you we'd be famous someday, Theo nudged Zoe. As the delegation prepared to return to their ship, young Krill X stepped forward. Captain Vrex Law, with your permission, I wish to request reassignment. The captain's antennae twitched in surprise. Reassignment? I wish to join the human repair crew as an apprentice, Krill X stated boldly. Their methodology offers valuable insights that could benefit Alliance engineering. Vrex Law looked from the young engineer to the humans and back again. You understand this would be highly irregular. So is fixing a quantum flux capacitor with spare parts and a wrench, sir, Krill X replied. After a moment's consideration, Vrex Law nodded. Request granted. Consider it a cultural exchange program. As the Celestial Majesty departed in a perfect surge of power, the humans and their new apprentice made their way back to the duct tape dream. Where to next, boss? Zoe asked, already scrolling through the incoming repair requests on her tablet. I'm thinking that distress call from the Pleiades looks interesting, Mac replied. Something about a dimensionally unstable warp gate that's been giving them headaches for months. You can't out. Ooh, that sounds fun, Theo enthused. Krill X, you're going to love warp gate mechanics. The humans have a special approach to those. Let me guess, the young alien ventured. You hit them with wrenches until they work? Only sometimes. Mac laughed. Other times we use hammers. As the duct tape dream pulled away from the station, a priority communication came through. Commander Plix's gelatinous form appeared on screen. One last piece of news you might find amusing. The commander bubbled. The Alliance Engineering Council has created a new official protocol designation for irreparable vessels. Oh? Mac raised an eyebrow. Yes. It's now standard procedure that when all conventional methods fail, consult humans. They're calling it the Reynolds Protocol. Mac grinned as she punched in the coordinates for their next mission. Not bad for a bunch of primitive primates with wrenches, eh? Behind them, the stars stretched into streaks of light as the ship that no sensible engineer would ever consider spaceworthy jumped smoothly to faster than light speed, carrying its crew of impossible problem solvers toward their next challenge. The universe, it seemed, was finally learning what Earth had known for millennia: never underestimate a human with a wrench and a smirk.